Ave Satanas, lovely living people, and welcome to I'm Sorry, What? An Unofficial Ghost Podcast. My name is Sabrina, and there are many people here today. First of all, we have Jillian. Say hello, Jillian. So,
Hello.
Jillian was on here the last episode we did about Repugnant, and there's some male support here today. So, we have Brad.
Hello.
Hi, Brad. And we have Chris. Hi, Chris.
Up.
Um, would you guys like to introduce yourself a little? Maybe say a little something about how you got into this fandom and maybe why you're here today. Chris,
All right, Chris.
if you want to,
Well, I
you
was gonna
can
say
start.
Brad's got seniority, but I discovered Ghost in 2016 when Square Hammer came out, and it was vastly different from most of the stuff in my musical wheelhouse. Um, that whole music doesn't fit the image was actually kind of refreshing. Um, Up until then, I'd listened to a lot of thrash and death metal and old school punk.
Yeah.
So discovering Ghost was like, wow, this is so much different.
Yeah.
And then, becoming the fandom online, yada, yada, yada. Probably mostly because of Subvision Unofficial, I discovered these other bands that Tobias headed that had been in. And when I found out that one of them was a death metal band, I'm like, oh, this is it. And when I started listening, I was like, this is the way death metal used to sound
Yeah.
when it was still a fresh genre.
Yeah.
It's become kind of overproduced and processed and
What was it?
but I mean,
What it's supposed to sound like, basically. Kind of. I mean,
if I had to use one word, it would be unclean.
yeah.
If you go back and listen to like the first Entombed, the first Dismember, Grave, Unleashed, stuff like that, I mean, Repugnant really tried to bring back that rawness from a decade before, although unfortunately the timing of such a project probably wasn't the best.
Yeah.
But I love them.
That's why we're here, because we all love them, I guess.
Right.
Brad.
So my story is a little bit kind of convoluted. In high school, high school, I listened to a lot of heavy metal and punk, and in the '90s, I kind of really got into hip hop. And I'm from Detroit, and there was a huge underground hip hop scene in my area that kind of came up. It spawned names you would know like Kid Rock, Insane Clown Posse, Eminem, and I started to write for a hip hop magazine and and I've always been a collector. So I got my name known in the kind of hip hop world or Detroit city hip hop world as one of the biggest collectors. Well, at some point, I really kind of fell out of listening to the music. It just wasn't that interesting to me anymore. And I started to sell all of my stuff because I was looking to put money down on a down payment for the house that I'm in now.
Okay.
And there was this board that you could go to, and people knew me. Like I had probably as much fame in that fandom as I have in the Ghost fandom now, or infamy, whatever you want to say. And I was selling stuff, and I saw a couple of the guys had the Opus eponymous kind of like, it was like a web board forum, and you could have a little picture as your, as how you posted. And I saw it, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. But it's probably like rah rah, brawly vocal stuff. And I'd been, I'd bought stuff on, kind of looking at it and thinking that's cool, and then it always ended up being something that was just, really too. I like melody and I was like, yeah, it's probably just, like death metal-y, stuff that I'm not really into. And then I kept looking at it, and finally one day I was like, ah, fuck it. I'm like, hey, what is this that you have on there? And he's like, oh, that's Papa Emeritus. You've got to check this band out, Ghost. So this was April of 2013. It was actually the day that Infestissimum was released in the States. I played Infestissimum, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is fucking incredible!" Like they went from unknown to me to like my favorite band in a second.
Yeah.
And for a while it was just I would just listen to the albums, and when they came out I would listen to them, but I wasn't like hugely into like collecting or anything like that. We were still trying to put a down payment on a house. I wanted to see them live, but they never came to Alabama. It was always like states around
Mm.
Alabama, and I didn't have the money to travel to go see them, so I didn't get to see them until 2017 when they opened for Iron Maiden.
Okay.
But once I saw them live, opening for Iron Maiden, and then the song Dance Macabre came out,
Yeah.
and that song, I don't know why, that just was like that turned me from a really big fan of the band into like a super fan of the band. I played that song on repeat over and over and over again. That's when I decided I had to have like everything. Now, I know this is kind of a long, convoluted story. Back up 4 years, when I was first finding out about them, that they were still all secretive,
Yeah.
and you didn't know who they were, and it was like, who are these people? But I was like, fuck this, I'm gonna figure out who these guys are, and it was pretty easy to find out. Like I just Googled and Wikipedia
Mm.
told me, and that's when I found Subvision, Magna Carta Cartel, and Repugnant.
Mm.
And of course, back then I was like, oh, death metal, no, I'm not.
Yes.
I think, but Subvision and Magna Carta Cartel, that's my thing. That's cool. Um, so that's really kind of how I came into the fandom. And then,
Mm.
like after Dance Macabre, I started collecting. And the way that I collect is, I really want to know what uh, what what goes into making that first album, what goes into making that band.
Yeah.
And so to do that, you have to, in my opinion, look back and look at all the other bands the person's in,
Yeah.
listen to them and understand them, and then I started to collect all those things. And from that period, I've started to listen to death metal and opened up my when my wife's not around, I've opened up my musical repertoire from that. So for me, it was more like, Chris was like, "Oh, Ghost is cool, and he was in a death metal band, awesome." And I was like, "Ghost is cool. I'm not gonna listen to that death metal band," but now I do. So
Yeah.
that's where we are. And I'll tell more about how I got involved with Subvision Unofficial, and when we get to that
Yeah.
question, because that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. We also talked about doing more than one episode because there's so much to talk about. We could never put like Repugnant, Subvision, and Ghost into one episode. That would be maybe 24 hours. Um,
Yeah,
so,
for real.
right? So, Jillian actually, back then, invited me to your guys' group, Epitome of Brutality. And I then discovered the Subvision Unofficial side, which also belongs to you, Brad. Um, how
Actually, it doesn't belong to me.
it
So,
doesn't?
no, that's part of the story. And if you want me to tell it, I can tell it now. It's
Sure.
not super long. So, so when I started collecting and I started really kind of researching into pre-ghost bands, I would go to Subvision Unofficial. That page has been around since 2011 and is owned
Really?
by you guys who started it, and they posted all this amazing stuff, tons of great information. That guy was like really into researching Tobias and past stuff and Passiflora. And if you go way back to like 2015, 2014, 2013, those are all those none of those are my posts. Um, uh, so in my collecting, I came across this guy named Pele of Cool Junk. So he was the guy who owned the label Cool Junk that
Mm.
Subvision was signed on,
Oh.
and I started to buy things from him. He had shirts and CDs and promos. And one day I messaged him. I was like, "Hey man, do you got anything? Like that I have, anything new?" And he's like, "Here's a link to my eBay auction I just put up," and it was an eBay auction for the demo brilliant music for stupid people. And I had never seen that before. No one had ever seen it. It wasn't on the net.
Yeah.
It was like Subvision, brilliant music. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? So I bought it immediately. I was like, yes. And then when it came, I just sent it in a message to the Subvision Unofficial guy. And he's like, and then I started to tell him all the stuff that I had. And he's like, oh, dude, could you like post it on Subvision Unofficial? I was like, sure. He's like, I'll make you like administrator or something of the page. So I posted that on there, and then the dude disappeared. Like
Oh.
he just went
Wow.
away. And so since like 2019, I think he's made like 2 posts, and he'll come back about once a year, and he'll message me. His name is Bruno Pacifico or something like that, and he'll be like, Brad, thank you so much for posting on Subvision Unofficial. He
That's
actually
cool.
was a month ago. He popped in. He's like, look, our membership is up. He's
Oh
like,
my
thank you so
God.
much. And I
He
was
was
like,
he
no,
was looking
thank
for an
you.
heir, and he found you.
Yeah. But I'm not. I tried to ask him to make me owner of the page, but he still owns the page. I can't
Yeah.
change the name. I can post on it. I can comment on it. I can do pretty much everything except for like change the name. I can change the cover photo, and I can change the profile photo. Yeah, it's not mine actually. I'm just a
Interesting.
minion
Yeah,
of
I
Subvision
didn't know
Unofficial.
that. Okay, but the Epitome of Brutality group, I'm going to link all these groups in your guys' profiles in the info box. But the Epitome of Brutality group is yours, like yours and Chris's, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how did
It
you?
was.
Yeah,
How
Go
did you
ahead.
two meet?
yeah.
I knew of Brad through the Ghost fandom. I had found a Hecatomb CD on eBay. This is before I knew about Discogs. And I'm just like thinking I've found like the Holy Grail. And I sent him a message saying, hey, look what I got. He was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I found out that Brad deals almost exclusively in vinyl. So showing him a picture of a CD wasn't all that great. But I mean,
I always try to get people positive, no matter what. I'm like, hey man, that's fucking cool. If you like it,
no, I'm not dismissing. Brad wasn't like whatever. I'm not saying that, but it was because I already had the Epitome CD, which that was pretty common at the time, which it isn't now.
Yeah.
And finding Hecatomb was like, wow. And then I discovered Discogs. But as far as the group itself, I messaged Brad and a couple other people about, hey, I kind of want to put this group together, but it's basically just a group equivalent of Subvision Official,
Yeah.
Unofficial.
Yeah.
And Brad was on board right away. It was like, okay, well, and we had one other person that was a big MCC fan, and somebody that I co-administrate Go Sweden with. I figured it might be helpful to have somebody who spoke Swedish. Well, it kind of got to the point where it was like, okay, this is overly redundant. And Brad and I talked one day, and it was like, why don't we distill this down to just Repugnant?
Yeah.
I'm like, and I was on board instantly, because out of all the previous bands, Repugnant is far and away my favorite.
Yeah.
So we changed the name, we got a new cover photo, and not by leaps and bounds, but our membership continues to grow, and
Yeah.
that's
So
where we are.
to add to that story a little bit, I think we knew each other from Go Sweden, and so we're going way back now. Go Sweden used to have a pre-Ghost Saturday, so there was 24 hours where you could post. So Go Sweden was like 90% just Ghost stuff, And then there was a 24-hour period where you could post Subvision, Repugnant, Superior.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
And I would post tons of stuff only on that time because, like to me, the ghost stuff was kind of, I love ghosts, but the ghost stuff was saturated. And so when Chris messaged me about forming a group, I think that the impetus was that the 24 hours of pre-ghost stuff was not going over so well on Ghost Sweden.
No, it wasn't.
We wanted to move it to a separate location. And yeah, the original group had a lot of interest at first, but it didn't have a and it was like kind of rudderless, so it was just there was no direction, and it was actually kind of dying. I think there wasn't a lot of posting except for like a bunch of people who are attracted to BS as Mary Gore posting those pictures over and over again. It was like the same picture, you see the same picture week to week to week and Oz, which is fine. Like I get it, it happened in the 80s when hair metal was big and people are attracted to him. It's no problem with me, but it was the group was kind of rudderless. So I had some information that Soul Seller, who did Epitome of Darkness, was going, and I now all want to say Epitome of Brutality every time I say Epitome of Darkness, was going to lose the right to Repugnant, and it was going to go back to Tobias, and I didn't know much more than that, but was hoping that he would do something with it. So I figured making the group about Repugnant would be timely, considering that happened. And then of course, it fell off of streaming and then came back remastered by Tobias, and it's now part of something that he owns and makes money off of, which is pretty cool. So I think it was a wise move that we and I think Repugnant is kind of picking up as Subvision, like early on with Ghost, because of their similarities with Tobias's clean vocals and just kind of the melody of it was very easy for lots of fans to kind of go back and forth. But Repugnant was kind of like, a lot of fans were like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But now as the fandom grows, you have that certain segment that really likes that extreme metal too. Yeah. And so there's more and more people that
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, I'm going to link all these groups down below. We thought of a couple of questions, not too many, because we thought, out of these questions we can talk some more. I think Jillian has a couple written down. Maybe you want to look through them and maybe give.
Well, I came up with a new question.
Oh.
I think the audience would love to have a fashion show from the both of you.
Yes.
You want to talk about the shirts you're wearing?
Yes, please. Yes.
Brad, go first.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I just got done talking. I was like, okay.
Okay, I'll go first.
All right, go first.
This is a actual Epitome of Darkness. I almost said Brutality. Shirt that Brad, who is the finder of all things Repugnant, it was actually on eBay, and he shared it in a group, and you've never seen me log into eBay so quickly and hit buy now. I mean, I set a world record that day. And, because
the fastest, the quickest purchase ever on
I think
eBay.
Collectively we try to find stuff that members might be interested in buying, and do our best to make sure it's not some scam or bootleg or whatever. Because that would just be wrong, no matter what the fandom is. But the sad thing is like when it comes to the merch for Repugnant now, the prices are just going through the roof. And I'm certainly not bragging. I think it might have something to do with the group. Actually, it probably is a little bit.
Brag away.
Yes, do that.
But Brad and I are on there advertising all this stuff. Oh, we found this. Oh, check this out. And then they go to Discogs or eBay or Trade Air. or whatever, and then buy it all up, and then people are seeing that, oh, the people want to buy this stuff. Let's crank the price up. So now buying Repugnant stuff is becoming almost unaffordable.
Yeah.
And scarce.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what a lot of people don't realize is these bands, these pre-Ghost bands that Tobias was part of were very, very small.
Yeah.
They generally had very few people at their shows.
Right.
Most of them were friends or other musicians. And so shirts and demo tapes and CDs and records and vinyl were all made, not in huge quantities. So it's not even, a big release for them would be 500, pressed vinyl. But like t-shirts wise, like the original t-shirts from the time when Repugnant was around, you're talking they might have made 50 of them. So yeah, and when I really started collecting was 2019, but even back then, all of this stuff was plentiful on Discogs and Tradera and eBay, and it was cheap, and nobody was looking for it. People were, they hadn't really branched out from Ghost, and so it was very easy back then to buy all that stuff. So I try to return the favor on the group, and when I see things that I already have, or I see things that I already have and it's a good price, I just put it there because I do want people to have these things and be able to share in the fandom. Now it's true I do have a lot of stuff, and
but it's not your fault what happened to what happened to the prices.
A lot of stuff.
Right, exactly. But people accuse me of hoarding, but it's not true. Like, I actually want other people to buy this stuff. But anyways, this shirt is special, actually. So this is, let me see if I can get a little. This is the Spawn of Pure Malevolent shirt. So, but this shirt is actually a one of one. Only one of these was made. There are 3 different versions of Spawn of Pure Malevolence. The first set of Spawn of Pure Malevolent shirts were produced by Tobe right about the time the demo tape came out. Like I said, they made about 50 of them. Well, the problem with the original ones that they made, and you can see the tag, I've posted all this on Subvision Unofficial, is that if you wore it and then you washed it, it just shredded in the washer and the dryer. So very quickly they realized that they were very low quality shirts, and the only ones left are ones that were never washed. And I do have a couple of those original, and I have one that's all like ripped up from being washed, and then one that's never been worn. It will never get worn because I don't want to have to wash it. But anyways, Johan wanted to actually wear.
Yeah, you can show that in a second, Chris.
I'm sorry.
You can show that in a second, Chris. Really excited to see that.
No, I wasn't trying to make it a focal point. I just thought hey.
Oh yeah, awesome. So Johan wanted to wear a shirt live on stage, but he wanted to be able to wear it, I guess, to multiple shows, right? And wash it. So he made his own with a different tag, Levi's tag, and amazingly, he was willing to sell this to me. This shirt actually he's wearing it in the picture on the Hecatomb 7-inch vinyl.
It's crazy.
And so I was like, really, thank you, Johan. That's still fucking cool as hell. But this is actually the first time I've actually ever worn it. It's just been sitting there in my shirts. Since I got it, because it's super special. It's one of one. If something happens to it, it's gone. But I guess you can wash it. So this was Johan's shirt. This shirt is pictured. If you want, I can go grab the Hecatomb 7-inch and show you where it's pictured.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Brad, if you don't have it with you, I can go grab it. I got it right here.
I got it.
Okay.
Jillian, what are you wearing?
Me?
Yeah, this is like this is like being at the red carpet and everybody's like telling the designers and what they're wearing.
It's a bootleg from somebody on Tradera.
Yeah. Everybody's wearing all these.
My blanket on. I can't show it off.
Everybody's wearing all these cool Repugnant shirts, and I'm here with my Uncle Cockle shirt.
There's nothing wrong with Uncle Cockle. So there isn't.
Johan.
wearing the shirt.
Oh, it's
Yeah, shout
so
out
cool.
Johan.
And
That is incredible.
Ooh, that
God,
looks familiar.
God. Chris, you wanted to show something I just saw.
No, they're just talking about the demo, and I just
Show it
pulled it
off.
up that this was the beginning.
You can talk.
February of 1999.
Yeah, please talk about it a little bit. Would love to see and hear some of that.
Birthday.
When Repugnant formed, it was only 3 people. It was Tobias, Carl Envall, who later left to go to Kamos, Norwegians. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And Chris, I'm not even going to try to say his real last name because I don't speak Swedish, but he went by the stage name Chris Piss.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of Repugnant, and then sometime between then and later in the year of 1999, Carl left, Jonas Ahonen joined in on bass, and of course Johan Wallen became the amazing second guitarist, and that was the lineup that performed on Hecatomb.
Yeah.
Probably the greatest EP ever recorded. Biased opinion.
Crazy. Brad, do you remember the very first thing you've ever collected from Ghost, Tobias in general?
I remember what really got me hardcore into collecting. So again, like my goal always with collecting is to find the earliest thing that the band did. So I went on to Discogs and I kind of looked around and saw the Elizabeth 7-inch, and then I saw this demo tape, and it was like, I was like, oh wow, that's cool. Ghost put out a demo tape, and then I saw, oh, one is listed, and it was for a hefty sum of money, and just let him know I'm interested and see what happens. And it happened to be Marco, who had it listed, and then we kind of started talking and became friends, and also an administrator over on Ghost Collectors with Marco.
Yeah.
But that really is what got my collecting rolling, was getting that demo tape. Once I got that demo tape, and I started reading more and more about the formation of Ghost, I learned a lot. That there was a song called, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, and something in Swedish, Satan's Gnat. And that was my goal, was to actually get this song, because this was the first song that Tobias had written. He was singing in Swedish on the song, and I had to hear it. I just, something about the magic of Ghost made me want to hear that. And then in the process of doing that, learning that when Tobias came up with Ghost, he drew from the melody of Subvision, the darkness of his former groups like Superior and Repugnant. I started to really want to collect all that stuff to kind of really understand what made Ghost. And that kind of was like what drove me towards collecting. And then of course along the way, you like back a few years ago, people were like, there may be this record called Passiflora, but nobody has it. Nobody knows if it's really true, that it exists. So of course that piqued my interest to want to get that, like having things that very few people have, or that's kind of what I enjoy in collecting. So that's kind of the avenue I went down.
Talking of Elizabeth, which is of course an opus eponymous, Jillian actually had a really good question, which I would love your guys' opinion too. So maybe you wanna talk about that a little bit, Jillian. The
What question is that?
the
'Cause
one that we actually talked about, where Chris already said something about it, with like Repugnant's like next.
Oh, the next album
Yeah. I think
we
this
get
is
into
such
that
such
now?
an I think it's such an interesting subject.
Yeah, so I've talked to Chris about this. And Chris, I'm so sorry, I disagree with your opinion. But I would still love for everybody to hear it, okay? In the 2010 Forged in Death article in a magazine, I forget which magazine, Tobias was like, yeah, there's going to be another album. It's called Toxic Contagion. I really used the grieving process from my brother's passing for this. And I'm curious, Chris, I would love for you to talk about your opinion on if there actually was going to be another album.
Brad is much better informed on stuff like this. I mean, he was doing this thing where he resurrected Repugnant so he could tour again, but he was also trying to get Ghost out there again. I think he was just trying to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what stuck first. Now, since then, I've learned that yes, he was in the process of writing other stuff for a second Repugnant album, so perhaps I misspoke. But I think given the choice of continuing on with Repugnant, which he didn't get very far to begin with,
Yeah.
I think Ghost was the one that was gonna get him where he wanted to be. I mean, look at Ghost now.
Yeah.
And the thing about Repugnant is, and it's like a lot of bands that are big now, like the Misfits, legendary band.
Yeah.
But when they were actually together, from 77, 83, they weren't really that popular. Now everybody's heard them. It's kind of the same way with Repugnant. 98 to 2004, okay, they had like a 6-year run. They never really got that big. Fast forward 20 years, you can't even buy Epitome of Brutality without paying a fortune.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of goes in waves or cycles or whatever.
So, Jillian, you disagree, you said. So we're back. That was a little, anyways. So, Jillian, you want to talk about your opinion because you said you disagree with Chris.
Yes, I think last time Chris and I spoke, he talked about how he thought maybe Tobias was hinting at another album for Repugnant to kind of hide his identity for Ghost a little more.
Tobias.
Oh, did I say it wrong?
Yes, like always.
Whatever.
He is or gay.
Whatever.
Right.
And I disagree with him because I think the passing of his brother, I don't think he would use that lightheartedly. So I think 100% there was definitely another album, and obviously he didn't put it out there. So,
Okay. Brett, what is your opinion on that?
Well, I do know. I mean, I'll say I don't think that based on what I've read in interviews that he does not. One of the reasons he doesn't like Subvision is because Subvision was too. It was too personal. It was too directly linked to things that had gone on in his life. And he likes the barrier of Ghost and that he can talk about things, but cloak it in, the
It's
satanic language.
Yeah, and it's not too personal for him.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, there occasionally, Pre-Cal had a little bit of some pretty awesome disses towards the prior group.
Yes.
But for the most part, it is free of direct personal stuff. There may be personal stuff in there cloaked, but it's not. There's not a direct link. So, and that may be what he was talking about with that Repugnant album. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea if he recorded a Repugnant album, or my guess is he probably wrote some songs. He probably still writes death metal songs to this day, but I don't think that he is planning on releasing them. I think a couple of things I've heard that Repugnant itself, the second reincarnation of Repugnant was more of a way to, since Repugnant had built up a bit of a cult status, that name could get them into some festivals. And so a couple of those festivals, like Repugnant played and Ghost played. So he kind of used that until the Ghost momentum got going. And then I also heard other people say that's not necessarily true,
Yeah.
that he really was trying to do something with Ghost. But the problem is that the musicians that he had, Gottfried Amen, Adam Zars, and Emil Svensson were all in other bands. Emil being Watain, Gottfried was in Solitude, and Adam Zars was in Tribulation and Enforcer. I can't remember right around that time, or both. And so those guys were, they weren't available to record. They weren't really available a whole lot to tour. So the whole thing, just the wheels kind of fell off of the
Yeah.
whole thing. But again, whether he went into a studio and actually recorded something around that time, I don't know, because I've never spoken to those guys, and I've never spoken to Tobias directly about Repugnant. I think, as he's stated in interviews, there's a wistfulness. Death metal is certainly part of that nostalgia for him.
Sure.
That he really loved that when he was at that age where that music makes like a memorable, lasting impression. But the problem is that Ghost is very busy, and Ghost takes up a lot of his time, and Ghost is still gaining popularity. So it would be difficult to derail that, to bring back Repugnant or to release another Repugnant album at this time. That doesn't mean that could never happen in the future, but it seems unlikely.
Sure.
That if something was recorded or even written, that it would come out, and then it probably would be very different. He may use some of those melodies, but the lyrics may be different, or I think the whole album would come out differently, because so much has happened between 2010 and 2024. I mean, he's like a totally different person now. So that's my thoughts. I don't know.
That would have
Long
actually
way of saying
that would have actually been my next
Go for it.
question, if you guys think that there will ever be a Repugnant sort of comeback, because he, with that infamous interview where he said that, Marigore is somewhere out there and he's still really obsessed with death metal. But yeah, I mean,
they.
yeah, exactly that interview.
I would love that, and I have advocated for that. It
Yeah.
was funny when the streaming got pulled off. People were like, oh, Subvision Unofficial did that, and he's gonna own the rights or whatever. And I'm like, man, fuck y'all. Like, I'm over here. I like talked to Gura about it. I talked to Johan about it, and I talked to Tomas about it as well too. If a Repugnant reunion were to occur, I would hope that it would not be with anyone but those three
Yeah,
guys.
sure, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And but I will say that it's probably unlikely. Gura told me once he quits a band, he never goes back and plays with that band. And Johan is busy doing other things, other band things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Thomas would probably do it if the other two guys did it. Like, I don't think he has any strong feelings one way or the other. But it would have to be something where, all the planets and stars and moon aligned, and
Yeah.
it was time for them. But of course, I advocate for every time I talk to those guys. I'm like, man, you should do a little tour. You should open for Ghosts. Why
Yeah,
not?
that would be
You know, but
crazy. Yeah.
I'm
God.
always advocating for that.
Yeah. So,
That would
yeah.
be a dream tour.
Absolutely. A Repugnant opening for Ghost, that would be crazy. I mean, Tobias would have to change like characters and then costume and whatever so quick.
Well, he does that already. So
But the other thing is the voice. Like,
Yeah.
the problem with Repugnant is that it's very difficult on
Sure.
the vocal cords.
Sure.
And so it would be very difficult for him to do that and then go. I don't think that would happen.
No.
Like, there's no way Repugnant could open for Ghost, to be honest with you. It would have to be a totally separate thing, which then just makes it less likely that it's going to
Yeah.
happen, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to put on a tour and do that kind of thing. And, and to set all that up for, it's probably not going to happen, unfortunately. Sorry to burst everyone's bubble, but I do advocate for it. I mean, I I would love that. I would be there.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, because if you listen to, like, go on YouTube and watch the videos of the 2010-2011 Repugnant, Tobias
Tobias.
was not nearly as guttural with his vocals as he was back in the real Repugnant. I mean that versus Hecatomb, it doesn't even sound like the same person. I think he was really working, kind of to go easy on his voice. So when he went out and sang for Ghost, he wouldn't be trashed. So.
I saw that Jillian wrote down a question of your guys' favorite song from Repugnant and also from Subvision, if you guys want to talk about that. So what would your guys' favorite Repugnant song be? I know that Jillian's is probably off of Hack. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, Brett, go ahead.
Oh, no, Jillian, go. You speak first.
No, Sabrina. You go first.
I had problems getting into Repugnant, I have to say. I wanted to get into it, but I've never listened to death metal before. And so I wanted to like it, and the very first song I loved was Draped in Sailcloth. And so that would probably be my all-time favorite, but my favorite song is definitely Eating from a Coffin. I love that song dearly. It's my favorite Repugnant song of all time. Yeah.
Classic.
Eating from a coffin.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, it's probably from Hecatomb, I guess, Jillian.
Oh, Hecatomb in its entirety is amazing. I'm not like Sabrina. I grew up on Marilyn Manson. Like, I love metal, anything. So when I got into Ghost, I then found Repugnant, and I was like, fuck yeah. But I would say, I had to remember the name. The Stench of the Cursed Graves. It's like an unreleased one, I guess, but there's lyrics.
Oh, from the Spawn
lyrics.
demo, yeah.
Yes. That one's one of my favorites.
Do any of you guys have a Hecatomb or a Epitome of Darkness vinyl with you right now? And maybe want to show that real quick.
In another room.
So if
Hold on a second.
I do.
Sure.
Well, you which
if you got it closer, go get excited. I would have to walk a ways away to grab mine.
So maybe Brett,
hold on just a second.
Sure, Brett, maybe you can talk about yours.
Sure. So mine definitely would be I'm going to put this in parentheses, Morbid cover, Another Vision. So
I love that one.
Yeah, it's such a good song, and it has the most melody of any song on the Repugnant album. But it's kind of cool, I mean, I don't know how much people know about Morbid, but Morbid was Dead, who was in Mayhem for a little while until he committed suicide. That was his band prior to going over to Mayhem, and that's the demo. Morbid's demo tape was what Euronymous heard that said, we have to get this guy to sing on the record. And Another Vision was not a song that was ever recorded by the band. I think there's just a video of them playing it live, and it really stuck with Tobias, and he wanted to make a cover of it, and he didn't really know the lyrics, so I think he had to make up some of the lyrics because he couldn't hear what they were saying. But yeah, I love that song, and I love the cool way he made that cover, so that would be my fave.
Yeah. Before you go on, Chris, I'm going to get my Epitome of Darkness just so I can show it.
Take a look.
That song is, well, I mean, I had posted something about it in a group. Oh, because it was on Liquid Metal on Ian Christie's Bloody Roots show, and I shared. I was like, okay, look at this. Hecatomb. Repugnant is on Sirius XM. I mean, this is cool as hell.
Yeah.
And a member of our group who is actually a member of the original Repugnant said, wow, that is cool. That is the one song that I pretty much wrote by myself. So that, when he said that, okay, it's like, okay, well, that seals the deal for me. That's my favorite. But I beyond that, if you put a gun to my head and told me to pick a song, I mean, they wrote so many great songs. They just weren't in the right time for it.
I have to be honest. I really only bought the Epitome, like this one, because it has the the red vinyl, and I just love the look of
Nice.
it. But yeah, I really love that one. I know that I don't have to ask Jillian this next question, but what would you guys' favorite Subvision song be? Because I know of Jillian's feelings for that band.
You.
You don't like Subvision? Oh man.
No, I'm so sorry.
So what was yours be, Brad? Your favorite Subvision song?
Oh gosh, that's a really, really tough question. So like picking a Subvision song is like Chris said, is like, picking a child. I love Subvision. Um, and I mean, it definitely have to be off So Far So Noir. I'm gonna say right now, like I'm just gonna go with what comes off the top of my head. Cartwheeling the Void. I really dig that song.
Yeah.
I like it. It's kind of a television ripoff, but it's still a really awesome song. But I love that whole album, and I love the Killing Floor EP.
Yeah.
And so it's really Love is a Fire would be another one. I'm like, I keep picking cover songs, but that's another one that I really love. And I also have a studio demo tape with the Dead Boys cover, Not Anymore, which is also
Nice.
really, really good as well too. And I mean, they do a really good job with it, and I love that first Dead Boys album is fucking phenomenal. But the thing is, I had never heard that Dead Boys album until I got that tape. I got it from Eric Danielson actually, and when I listened to it, I was like, oh, this Not Anymore song is so good. He's like, oh, that's a Dead Boys cover, and I went out and bought the record, and it's from their first record, Young, Loud, and Snotty. And it's quickly become one of my favorite punk records of all time. Like,
Yeah.
it's just amazing. So the Subvision cover of it, which unfortunately I know y'all can't hear, is really good.
Yeah.
So I had to, I guess three that came off the top of my head right now.
I think Twitter will have a field day with this. With this information. So Chris, what about yours?
Release the Not Anymore song.
Yeah.
Hands down, Scenario.
Yeah. Such a good song.
Love Scenario.
Yeah. Good.
So Scenario, interestingly, so Far So Noir was recorded, and it had Alienor and one other song, Radioactive Man. And Radioactive Man and Alienor were older songs, but then they were reworked for So Far So Noir. But they were removed because Tobias did not feel that they met the quality of where the direction of Subvision was going. And so he went into another studio and recorded Room 611 and Scenario, and then added those two to So Far So Noir. So what I'd like to do, I actually have the mix for So Far So Noir that they were going to make a vinyl for, but they never did. I'd like to make that vinyl with the
that'd be
original
cool.
12 songs, Radioactive Man and Alienor, and do like a little 7-inch with B-side Scenario and B-side Room 611. And it would be kind of like the Sex Pistols. Their first release had the first press had the 11 songs, and then it had a little 7-inch single with just one song on
cool.
it.
Yeah.
It would be really cool to do that. So that I may do that for myself sometime this year. So
Yeah. I think mine would be Son of May. I love this song so much. Maybe I can ask the both
Good
of
one
you.
too.
I have actually a little, like a bit of a problem with the lyrics for that song, because not with the lyrics, but I don't get the overall story of that song. So what is it really about, Son of May?
Well, I can tell you this, I'm not 100% sure, but there is an unreleased song called Pisces versus Gemini that was never finished. And
From
if you look
Subvision.
at the dates, from Subvision,
Yeah.
yeah, and you know that a lot of these songs were about relationship and breakups and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I was kind of curious because of I was like, wait a second. So obviously, I know Tobias's birthday, and I was like, let me see if that's Pisces. Yep, his birthday falls in Pisces. So I'm guessing that whatever woman that he's singing about in Pisces versus Gemini was a
Will be a
Gemini.
Gemini, yeah.
Son of May could have been related to maybe she had a late May birthday and fell into Gemini. I really don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
So but you would know that because you would know that that song even existed. I don't think
Mm.
anyone does. I've never told anyone about it. Um, as far as like uh, like what what he meant. I mean, I think a lot of Subvision was at the time was kind of heartbreak
Yeah.
um,
Sure.
uh, and there are a couple other songs like Necropolis was his attempt at making what would be a song for a soundtrack to a movie. I do know that that Gura told me that that's
Mm.
what that song was.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we're jumping bands a little, but Jillian wrote down if you've ever
So,
if you've ever had any fun interactions with the band members of Repugnant, and can I say that some are in the Epitome of Brutality group? I think Chris actually mentioned it, right? Um,
one is.
one is, yeah. So how did that happen? Did he just join, or did any of you like contacted him and asked if he wanted to maybe join that group?
So yeah, interestingly, I'll take this one.
Good.
So in the course of my collecting, uh, when it comes to collecting, I'm very introverted in my regular life, but when it comes to collecting, I'm kind of open and talking. If someone has
Yeah,
something
same.
rare, then I will kind of talk to them and see what else they have or what else they know. Well, I was collecting Ghost, and I had gotten all the Opus eponymous vinyls that were released, and I was like, oh, what can I do now? I need to find them all the original first press ones sealed. So one day, I was on Discogs, and a purple one showed up sealed, purple first press, and the guy said that he used to work for one of the distribution companies for Opus or for that distributed Opus Eponymous. So I bought that from him, and I was like, "Hey, do you have anything else Ghost related?" And he's
Hmm.
like, "No, I don't." And then the next day, he's like, I took a look at your Watt list on Discogs, and I have this Subvision CD, and I have this, and I have that, and then and he had all this stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to send you some more want list stuff that I have. And I sent a picture of this Crash Diet shirt. So this Crash Diet shirt was, I found Dave Leppard was wearing it, but it was from the original Crash Diet, and it had the four members. So it had Gustav, Tomas, Tobe, and Dave. And I was like, I know this is like a shot in the dark, but do you know anyone who has that shirt?
Hmm.
And he's like, yeah, probably not going to happen, but I'll check around for you. And next day he's like, you're never going to believe it. Send me a picture of that shirt. And
Wow.
and then he's
God.
like, and then I also have someone who has this Ghost demo CD that is was like before the other demo, and that's the song I was looking for. So then we started to develop this friendship. He worked for a record store, and he had gotten COVID, so was out of work for like a month. He had nothing to do, and he's like, my goal while I'm out of work is to help you find everything that you want to find. I happen to be friends with all of these guys and all the bands like Enforcer,
Wow.
Tribulation, Ghost. Subvision, Repugnant, and he's like this super gregarious guy who knows everybody in Sweden. His name is Ove. Uh, and so we were talking, and I ended up buying all this stuff, and he ended up packaging up and selling to me, and then he went back to work, and I was like, hey, do you know anyone else who has any more stuff? He's like, I think I know. I think I have the email of Gura, and he's like, but I can't be the middleman anymore. Like, I'm just gonna
Sure.
give you his contact information, and you send him an email and whatever. So I was like kind of nervous, and I wrote out my email. I was like, hey, I'm looking for this stuff, and then he responded, and he's like, this is what I have, and sent me all these pictures, and then we started talking back and forth. I would ask him questions, and he would answer, and then he gave me his WhatsApp account number, and we've been talking on as friends on WhatsApp for like 3 years now. And so I've actually gone and stayed at his house for a ghost show. We actually just went to London and went to see Paul Diano do a concert. It was his friend, me, and him, and I talk to him all the time, like just about music, um, uh, bands that he likes. And he'll try to, he's got me listening to all these black metal bands and classic death metal bands and punk bands and all the stuff that influenced him and Ghost um, and all the stuff. And so it's really cool. Like we've developed a friendship, and occasionally he will also, like, if he finds stuff, he knows I collect things and I don't like share them broadly with the world. So he'll sell me those things as well too. But it's super cool to be friends with a musician that you like totally. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
I've never
totally.
experienced before, right? Like this
Yeah.
guy was in Subvision, Crash Diet, he was in Ghost, he was in Repugnant, and we talk music all the time, like pretty much almost every day. And so that's really cool. As far as Johan goes, so once I got moved over and it was posted Subvision Unofficial, every once in a while I would post something and Johan would give information that he knew, or he would correct my information. And he posted one day. I posted something about Subvision, and he goes, "Did you know Subvision used to be called Plastic Head, and they actually had a CD? They had a CD with that name, as a demo with that name too." And I was like, "Oh, what? Oh my God, this is fucking mind blowing for me. This is like the coolest thing ever." So I wasn't friends with him at the time, so I messaged him and I was like, "Hey, I saw your comment on there. Like, I'm a really big collector. If you have this Plastic Head demo, I would love to buy it off you." And he's like, "Yeah, you seem like a cool guy, but no." And then it was like nothing. And I don't know what happened. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I was like, and I don't even know. I must have known that he was Johann of Repugnant. I'm not 100% sure when I knew all that. But eventually, like, I would continue to post stuff, and he would continue to comment, and we would go back and forth. And then eventually, he accepted my friend request, and then we talk, not as much as like Gura and I talk, but he always sees all the Subvision Unofficial posts. And if you go down, you'll look, like, even today I posted something and he commented, correcting my information a little bit. But when I posted about Epitome of Brutality on Subvision Unofficial, um, and uh, and and he came over and joined our group. I have to let the dog in, so Chris, you take it from here. I'm gonna mute myself. I'll be.
All right.
Please,
Okay.
Chris.
You wanted to see the Hecatomb
Yeah,
vinyl?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Look at
Now
that.
this is the 2000 reissue. It was picked. They got a deal with Hammerheart Records, which that was a relationship that ended up not ending well. But this was a reissue of the 7-inch from 1999 with Rapturous Genocide added to it. Now, the special, I mean, Brad's got a ton of autographs, but This one I actually bought from a member of Repugnant.
God,
and
so cool. God.
Press piss.
Can you take
Yes.
can you take a picture of that and send it to me so that I can maybe like show a bigger picture of that in the actual
Yeah, I'll
podcast?
send it to you.
That would be cool. Incredible. So you also have a Hackatomb, right? You showed it, I think, in the last
Huh?
episode. Your Hackatomb.
Me? Yes, I have the little 7-inch one that I bought from Daniel. That comes with a sticker.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
then I
you
have
got
the
the
one
full
that
complete
Chris
one.
has. Yes, oh, so cool.
I didn't get a sticker.
So, Brad,
Yeah,
yeah.
in the trading world, there are yours with a sticker, mine with a sticker, and I think Johan still has one with a sticker as well too. And those are I've never seen any. He said they said they put 150 of the 500 with stickers. Most people must have lost them because I've even checked Discogs. It's never listed in their like include sticker. The picture on Discogs has the sticker as well too. Like whoever put that picture up on Discogs, and there's a little tiny scurvy flyer that went into some of them as well too because Johan was in there. I have one Hecatomb that has scurvy flyer, the Repugnant sticker, and it was signed by the full band at that time. So it's got
Oh,
Jonas,
cool.
Easy.
Tobias signed as his name because he was not Copromancer and
Yeah.
he had not yet become Mary Gore. And then Johan signed it. And that was another thing how I started talking to Johan is I sent him the picture of that sleeve and just to make sure it was legit. And he and Chris confirmed it, but none of them remember signing it or where it came from or how they signed that record. But possibly the only signed Hecatomb from that time period, which is kind of cool. But to have the sticker
Yeah.
is really awesome.
Absolutely. You talking to these guys still, do you think or do you know if they know of the like newer fame that they received basically through Ghost and especially nowadays?
Well, I don't think any of them care about that.
Yeah.
To be honest. I mean, the only one who
And we're back.
okay, so um I mean honestly, here's the thing, like, when I first got into Ghost, the whole thing was like Tobias and Martin, Tobias and Martin, Tobias and Martin. That was like, Martin was the main ghoul that when a lot of these older fans got in there, they loved him. And there wasn't a whole lot out there about these other guys. But when you go back and you look into the history of the music that Tobias made, the Stockholm crew, were with him the longest. Like Gura was with Tobias making music from 2000 to March of 2011, so 11 years. There's no one else that has worked with him. I mean, on and off. There was periods of time where they weren't, maybe a year or two, where they weren't doing anything. But he was in bands with Tobias from 2000 till 2011, which is even longer than Martin, who was like 2010 to 2016. And then Tomas and Johan also were with him for a long period of time. And even when they weren't in the bands, they were all kind of friends and hanging around together. So these guys, I feel like, are much more essential to the story of how Tobias developed into Ghost than some of these other people. So I, of course, part of my what I post about is not to make these people famous, but just to know that, hey, these guys were part of the
Acknowledging them.
history of this.
Yeah.
That is Ghost. I can't speak for them or know what's in their mind, but I don't think any of them care all that much about that. But as a fan, I think they can understand me as a fan wanting to get it right.
Yeah.
Because like when I talk to Gura, like he doesn't really care about his own personal history, but like if you talk to him about Guns N' Roses, who's like his favorite band, like he knows every little minutia about each member of Guns N' Roses and how it came, just like I know about Ghost. So he understands me
Yeah.
when I'm trying to do this. But as far as
Sure.
like, does he care? No, he doesn't care about that.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think Johann does. I think Johann's, it has his other bands and other music and his own, things that he's doing in his own life and work and stuff like that. And Tomas has, he's in multiple bands right now. I think he's in Die Oberherren. He's in that thrash death metal band.
Exterminated.
Yeah, Exterminated. He's in Iron Lamb. So he's just kind of just enjoys the musician thing.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them. I mean, they may know or understand that there's more of a realization of who they are, but I don't think they're like excited about it or they want it or anything.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
And an interesting
Yeah.
thing about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I'm sorry. Sorry. Go on.
I was going to say, Gura is the only person other than Tobias that was in Crash Diet, Repugnant, Subvision, Ghost.
Yeah. Which many people also
This is
don't know
correct.
that he was in Ghost too. Don't think many people know that, actually.
No, they really don't. They don't. Not that's unfortunate that and really when Tobias had the idea for Ghost.
And we're back. Sorry about that, Chris. Brett, you can go
No
on.
problem.
I remember, what were we talking about? I can't even remember.
We were talking,
I think we're talking about Opus and
yeah,
the
about
fact that
Oh,
Gura
yeah,
is
yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
Gura is definitely an unsung hero when it comes to the beginnings of Ghost.
yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and hit. I mean, the songs were all Tobias, for sure, but it was him and Tobias, back and forth, talking about the way that the band should be set up and stuff like that. And he's very humble about that. And I don't think he really. I mean, I don't think he doesn't have. I mean, he doesn't. He's not angling to get that information out there. I'm more angling to get that information out, and so I always kind of like hesitate to like put too much emphasis on it because he doesn't necessarily want all that emphasis on it himself. He's very humble when it comes to that,
yeah,
and he's completely moved on. He's still friends with Tobias and still listens to everything. Goes whenever Ghost puts a new song out, I'm like, hey, did you hear
yeah,
it? What do you think? But yeah, it was when it comes to the way that Ghost looked, and the logos and the early art and all that, that was a collaboration between Tobias and Gura. Of course, all the songs except for Mummy Dust, which Gura wrote part of that song.
really?
Uh, Yep,
Okay, I
yep.
didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so Mummy Dust was a demo that was recorded for Opus that never got put on the
Really?
album. Yep.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then Tobias dusted that off for Meliora and added lyrics to it. And yeah, if you go look on Meliora on Wikipedia, you'll see Mummy Dust has Gustav Lindstrom as
Okay.
the one of the songwriters on there. So
Cool.
if you play that song over and over and over again, you are sending money to Gustav, and he
Good.
does
Good to
like that.
know.
All
Good to
right.
know.
Put it on repeat.
Well, and the funny thing about that is that I think, Brad, that was kind of a recent revelation
Yeah.
about that, because before that, it was generally understood, or at least assumed, that Mummy Dust was actually built from an unused Repugnant song, which turns out to be not true
What?
at
Okay.
all. So that's myth busted.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of, I think Faith was a unused Repugnant riff. I can't remember other ones, but yeah, I was really shocked. So that the way that turned out was we were talking about Mummy Dust, and I was like, oh yeah, that's an old Repugnant thing, right? And he was like, no, that was a demo that I wrote for Opus that never got recorded, and I happened to buy his computer that he had during the Opus time, and it has all these audio files.
Crazy.
And I had thought I had gone through all of them, and I clicked on this one that said conclave, something like that, and I was like, well, this doesn't sound like conclave, condia. I'm like, this sounds like mummy dust.
Yeah.
And then I remembered what he told me that it was a demo for Opus, and I was like, dude, I think I found that demo for Opus. He's like, oh, I gotta hear it, I gotta hear it. So I
Crazy.
recorded a little bit, and I sent it to him. He's like, that's it. And he's like, man, that computer had everything, didn't it? I was like, yep.
Wow.
So yeah, there was no lyrics. It's just an instrumental, guitar, bass, and drums.
Cool.
Yeah, that is what that is. And that's how he got his songwriting credits. And also recent revelation for me is there's only 3 musicians on Opus. I always assumed that Martin and Simon were on there, but no, it's just Tobe, Gura, and Ludwig.
Yeah.
So Ludwig on drums, Gura on bass,
Yeah.
and
Ludwig
Tobe
Kenberg.
guitar on and singing obviously on Opus. But Gura does not play bass on Elizabeth. That's all. Tobias plays everything on that.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, we already said that we're going to do more than one episode because there's just way too much to talk about. I would have one last question for the both of you. Is there anything right now that you would still like for your collection? Something that you've been hunting, been trying to find? Is there anything? Whoever wants to go first.
I don't have a first pressing of Epitome on vinyl. I have the picture disc reissue. I'd like to get a first pressing of the picture disc, but I've got one of everything else.
Yeah.
So, and it sucks because whether or not it's Epitome of Brutality's direct result or not, like I said before, the price of this stuff is just.
No. Yeah.
But I mean, that's falling right in line with some of the more rare ghost items too, and Subvision. There's one. It was actually shared in the group. Subvision rarity that the price is just astronomical. So I mean, you guys are both members of the group. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But
Was it the one she just
insane.
shared?
Yeah.
The one that's like $10,000.
It's 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just yeah, no. I think I know that, I mean, you Chris, you had it, of course, Brad, you have it. I would just love to have a copy of So Far So Noir. And I'm still kind of salty, Chris, that you actually traded it, I have to say. But I mean, sure, I know what you got for it, and I understand that, like, it means a lot to you. But yeah, I'm not going to pay 300, 400 euros for a copy on freaking Discogs. There's no way.
And that's on the low side.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no thank you. Yeah. Jillian, is there anything?
I was.
Yeah. Sorry, Brad. Go ahead.
Anything I would want?
Yeah. Sure. Whoever wants to say anything.
Brad, you can go first.
Oh, I was just gonna say I was the recipient of that trade with Chris.
Yes, I know.
It was a very easy trade. I had 2 of those cassettes, and I bought those cassettes were super cheap a few years ago, and I was like, I didn't pay much for it, and you want to give me that Subvision So Far So Noir? Okay. I don't normally trade or sell, but that was like, that's a win-win right there.
I know people are going to call me a sucker, but I had to have it.
Yeah,
So-
well, I don't know. That Repugnant tape may be worth more now. I mean, we're talking, but it doesn't matter to me. Like, I had 2.
And it's not
now
just
I
only
have-
about the
I mean,
money with everything when it comes to collecting.
Exactly. I love So Far So Noir. So for me, it was a good trade, and I knew it was helping you get something that you needed. So I was happy to do that.
Agreed.
Yeah, Jillian, is there anything you would want to have?
I think that I would really love to own a zine one day that,
Oh yeah.
features Repugnant or that Tobias had a hand in making. I don't know how many are left. I know, Brad, you probably own most of them. But that's okay. But yeah, I ordered the reprint one that the guy on Tradera was selling.
Yeah, I
So
also
I'm
have
happy
that.
with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. But is there any?
Yeah, I'm sorry that was a bootleg. I didn't realize that. But it's hard to know from pictures
It
on Twitter.
is.
But I saw it and I was like, oh man, that's a really cheap price.
Yeah.
If
It was like
$6.
$6, yeah.
That's why it's so cheap.
All right.
But it is a really cool interview.
Yeah.
When I came across that interview, and that Death by Execution fanzine, I was like, whoa, this is special. And I'll get to what I want to have in a second, but I would say that it's pretty cool, how I think, how kind of history has repeated itself with Tobias. Like he goes from one thing and then he moves solidly into the next. Like he went
Yeah.
from Superior and then he was solidly into Repugnant. And then from Repugnant, he went into Subvision and then was like, I'm Repugnant's dead to me. Like this is the thing now. Subvision is it. Like I'm not doing death metal anymore. And the same thing happened with Ghost, and but we just didn't have all those interviews because he then became anonymous. But when he talks about Subvision, I was like, Subvision is dead. But but Repugnant, is something that's like a twinkle in his eye, like maybe, because that has that nostalgia factor to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a couple of things that I would like to have. There are two things that nobody really knows about. They're sketches that were done by an artist, and they were the basis for the Elizabeth single cover and the Opus Eponymous cover.
I
And
just
that's
saw
all I
some.
can really say about those things. That'll be news to a lot of people out there in the world. The problem is the person who did these sketches is almost impossible to find, and I don't even know if they have them or not. But I would love to have those sketches. I do have pictures of the sketches. I have been asked not to share them, so I can't share them. I'm sorry if that makes Twitter mad.
Probably.
I'm sorry. I would like to share these things, but I am beholden to what other people tell me, and that's the truth. But those exist, and I have done a little digging trying to find those and
Yeah.
have not been fruitful. The other thing I like to collect is signatures, and I have many, many different eras of Tobias signatures. I have Papa 1 in all its different forms, Papa 2, Papa 3, Papa 4, Cardinalcopia. I have Tobias from 1999. I have Tobias from later, and you can see the differences there. I have Mary Gore in two different forms, but I'd love to have Leviathan. I'd love to have Copromancer. And in fact, when I met Tobias in LA, I asked him to sign my Spawn of Pure Malevolence as Copromancer, but he declined
Yeah.
because he was not in character. And I would love to have Royd Bisay or Bisay signature, which was another one of Tobias's aliases in Subvision, which at least one signature exists because it was on the Subvision webpage. I shared that recently. So these three things, these three signatures and the two sketches are probably impossible to find.
But do you know
I
that
also,
they exist? Like there are actually signatures with Copromancer and Leviathan?
I don't.
Okay.
I've never seen one. And it's possible he never signed anything, but also hard to believe. Like, why? I'm sure he doodled in some sketchbook when he was in Superior, like his name, and I'm sure Coperman as well too. It's just they're out. I'm sure they're out there, or if somebody had one, they might have lost. It may be totally impossible. But these are
Yeah.
you always have to have a collecting goal. I got my Satan's Knot. So I now need to have other goals, and so I've now reached into further obscurity
Yeah.
for the goals. But
I believe
I'm
in
not
you.
actively working very hard to try to get those, but those would be nice if they did pop up.
Yeah, great. You mentioning that you met Tobias, maybe that's something we can talk about. Could talk about in the next episode because I mean, you, Chris, you met Papa. So maybe that's something we could like include in the ghost talk for the next episode. Um, thank you. I mean, to the three of you for actually joining me. Also thank you to Jillian for coming back. Is there anything you'd still like want to maybe say about Repugnant for right now, or do you want to save it for the next episode? If anything comes to mind.
Next episode for me.
Good. Good.
I would say in the scheme of things, if Tobias and those guys had been 10 years older, Repugnant would have been right in the thick of things when Swedish death metal was booming.
Okay.
You know, I mean, and there with all the other Swedish greats when, I mean, it was really starting to blow up, you know, in 89 and 90. And I respect the fact that he took a type of music that was no longer really fashionable and tried to bring it back. And whether or not he was actually successful in that, I think is in the eye of the beholder. But I mean, Repugnant's music is right up there with the greats.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I think we all agree about that. I mean, we all share that love for Repugnant. All right. Again, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And I cannot wait for the next episode when we talk about ghosts a little more. And maybe also a little bit more about Tobias, maybe like his solo past, I think. Thank you so much for coming. And for the rest, I hope we see each other with the next episode. Bye. You can say bye too.
Sabrina, thank you for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Okay.
It was
It was a lot of fun.
It was a
tons
lot
fun.
of. It was. Thank you so much. We'll see each other next episode. Bye.
Yeah.